putting of the cross on a hill. Maraming historians dito sa Pilipinas always interpreted that, lalo diyan sa Visayas, na yung paglagay daw ni Magellan ng cross sa mga hills din sa Visaya ay parang signaling the birth of Christianity. Hindi yun totoo.
Magellan is a key person attributed with the arrival of Christianity to the Philippines. But the Philippines was not even his destination. What if he didn't land in Homonhon? Will we still be a country with a strong Catholic faith? Will we still be the largest Catholic population in this part of the world? This year, we celebrate our 500th-year victory at the Battle of Mactan. But have we, the Filipinos, really won the battle? In this episode of Historia, we will continue to know more about the arrival of Magellan Elcano Expedition and the coming of Christianity in the Philippines.
Hey! What's up? I'm Mark Pangilinan, your Kulit Traveler from Limang Siglo, and welcome to Historia, Story Within History. In this series, we will hear the stories of every place we visit. Let's explore, enhance our knowledge, but more importantly, enjoy, while deepening our understanding of our history.
We are still with Dr. Danilo Herona, who has done extensive research about the topic. Dr. Herona is the author of Ferdinand Magellan, The Armada de Maluco, and the European Discovery of the Philippines. This book has been recognized internationally as a prime source of information about Ferdinand Magellan. As an acknowledgement of his expertise on Magellan, he has been invited as a member of the Iniciativa Ciudadana Sevilla 2019-2022. This initiative is leading and coordinating the global celebration of the 500th-year anniversary of Ferdinand Magellan's circumnavigation of the world.
I was born actually in Naga City and Bicol region. Yeah, but I live here in Canacman, next town from the city of Naga.
Do we really know who Ferdinand Magellan is? There is a common belief that Magellan was the rival of Lapu-Lapu in the Battle of Mactan. But beyond that, who is Ferdinand Magellan?
First, we have to understand Magellan. We have to humanize Magellan. We always have a very, we idolize Magellan or we condemn Magellan. So some children would have a very, very romantic image of Magellan as the soldier, as a conquistador, the conqueror, all these things. On the other hand, some people, especially Filipinos who are rabid nationalists, would always condemn Magellan. I know of a certain guy who was very well educated, but very, very narrow-minded in his understanding of Magellan. They would condemn Magellan as a criminal, as an abusive guy, as a conquistador who paved the way for the colonization of the Philippines, and therefore condemn Magellan as the founder, the beginner of these abuses and exploitation of the island. But we have to understand, first and foremost, let's begin with the human side of Magellan. Magellan is a human being. Therefore, if he is a human being, you have to understand that Magellan has certain lapses, certain weaknesses. And therefore, if he has certain weaknesses, we also must be aware of the fact that he has certain strengths, certain character. And I would say the character of Magellan, the good side in the Magellan life has predominated rather than the bad side of him. One thing you have to understand, for example, just to cite a few, Magellan was married. He was married. He had a son, 6 months old, when he left. Imagine, here is a guy who's a dreamer. He dreamed of discovering a world, dreamed of traveling, and yet he left behind a family, the comfort of the family, which in fact, at the time, Mark, you have to understand that when a sailor left the shore at the time, they were required to give a last will and testament. The reason is because they do not really know whether they will. So here is a virtue of Magellan. He has to leave behind the comfort of the home, the love of a child and a wife, just to pursue a dream that will affect the whole of mankind 500 years after. He was a typical guy, as I said. He was just like us. He was a womanizer. There's no question about that. Just like what we know today, a sailor, a woman in every port. That's how he described a sailor. And Magellan was like that. In fact, one of the reasons why he died in Mactan, according to a certain Augustinian missionary, was because he was defending one of his bastard sons in the Battle of Mactan, Cristobal Ravelo. And he had also, most likely, other children in Portugal and in Spain. So he was a human being with all his witness, but then we must not forget of the strength of Magellan. He never abused the crew and the expedition. In fact, just an example of his magnanimity. In the mutiny of San Julian, where 40 joined the mutiny, which nearly ended the expedition, Magellan pardoned many of them and executed only 2 of them, the most guilty from among them. At the time, execution is just an easy job. You can just kill anybody because you are the head of the expedition. In the ocean, you can just throw your enemy. But Magellan did not do that. He pardoned them. So see the magnanimity of Magellan. And there were no complaints of the abuses on Magellan on his crew, except from the part of the Spanish hidalgos, who were always angry at Magellan, apparently jealous that the leadership of the expedition was given not to a Spanish soldier, but to a Portuguese who was an enemy of Spain at that time. So we have to look at Magellan in the context of his humanity. Despite his weakness, he was able to overcome the ordeals, the difficulties, and succeeded in reaching that other part of the world, eventually paving the way for the circumnavigation of the earth, which brought us a tremendous scientific knowledge of the sphericity of the world and created a certain understanding, a philosophy of man, that we are one human being. Whether you live in Africa, in America, in Asia, you live not in a Nuevo Mundo, as we always thought of America as a new world, but you live in the same world, therefore sharing the same humanity. I think that is one of the greatest legacies of the Magellan expedition to mankind even today. And that's what I would tell a child or a boy, that Magellan is a human being with his limitations, with his weakness, yet with a tremendous vision and tremendous determination to succeed. And we should imitate him in that respect. And I hope young children would appreciate that particular virtue of Magellan, to overcome limitations and to pursue your dream as much as you can.
According to Dr. Herona, the priests in the Magellan expedition are not an evangelization group. They are designated as Protector de los Indios. Protector de los Indios was an administrative office of the Spanish colonies that was responsible for attending to the well-being of the native population, including speaking on their behalf in courts and reporting back to the King of Spain.
The fact that the Magellan expedition carried with it 3 secular priests, contrary to what you were told in history that only Father Pedro de Valderrama came. That's not true. There were actually 3 more priests, 2 more priests. One of them was actually left behind in Patagonia in Argentina because he was condemned by Magellan because he joined the mutiny. The other one, we don't really know what happened to him. But the only one who survived and reached the Philippines was Father Pedro de Valderrama. But again, we have to look it in context again. When Valderrama came to the Philippines, when Magellan came to the Philippines, he carried with him 3 priests. The 3 priests are seculars, which therefore means that they are not here to evangelize. They are not here as missionaries. They were there only as chaplains of the expedition. So they were, in fact, there was 2 priests that were lacking because there were 5 ships, and each ship should have 1 priest to attend to the spiritual needs of the crew in that particular ship, but only 3, apparently because there were no other priests who volunteered to join the expedition. So what I'm trying to say is it was not an evangelizing expedition. Magellan brought the priests only to serve as chaplains, to provide the needs of the Christians already in the ships. But then, the other reason for bringing the priests is because, again, this is not written in any history that we have here right now, because the priests were designated as protector de los indios. This is an office of a priest assigned way back in South America as early as 1515, before the Magellan expedition left. The reason is because Fray Bartolome de las Casas, one of the pillars of human rights in world history, had already realized that if you only leave the natives to conquistadores, they would create a lot of abuses. And that's the reason why many people complain of the Spaniards for abuses. But they fail to understand that it's not the Christian missionaries, it's not the nation who are responsible for them. It's the conquistadores.
Conquistadores were the knights, soldiers, and explorers of the Spanish and the Portuguese empires.
And this is the role assigned to the priests at that time, to protect the natives against abuses as they learned that experience in South America. That's the reason why, Mark, in fairness to Magellan, in fairness to the priests, they were there not to condone abuses. They were there not to become party of abuses of the conquistador. You cannot expect these conquistadors. They were there to look for wealth, to secure power. But here, the priests were there to protect them, knowing that this was the main objective of the conquistadores. And therefore, in search of gold, in search of treasure, they would commit a lot of exploitations, a lot of abuses on the weak natives.
According to Dr. Herona, the priests have 2 main reasons for accompanying the expedition. The first one is because they're the chaplains, and the second reason is because they are designated as protector de los indios.
So there were 2 reasons. First, they were chaplains. Second, they were protector de los indios, protector of the indios. And that's the reason why I would like to clarify this to the audience, because many of these Filipinos who pretend to be scholars, they will always complain, oh, Spain came here to abuse us. Magellan led the way. That's not true. If you read the archives in the documents, you will realize that that's not true. The missionaries came here, the priests came here as protector de los indios. That's the reason why, if you notice, in the Magellan expedition, hardly can you, or not, in fact, no mention of any abuses committed by Magellan except in the Battle of Mactan, because they burned a certain village. But other than that, then you have to understand, it was war. It was war. It was a battle. But there was no atrocities committed in the spirit, in an atmosphere of peace. No. Precisely, the Magellan expedition actually was designed for that, to maintain peace, and that's the reason why the priests were there. But then, as I said, they were not to evangelize. They were there only to accompany the conquistadores, to provide them spiritual nourishment, but at the same time to avoid offending God and offending the natives. That's the phrase used in Spanish, that they were there for that purpose. But then, as I said, again, it was not an evangelizing group. It would take another group more prepared to convert the natives to Christianity. And that came with the other subsequent expedition, particularly with the Ordaneta Legazpi expedition, where Augustinians already came with it. So that's the reason why even then Christianity began, because although it was the priests designed to come in that expedition, were not designed to evangelize, yet they started certain rituals on Christianity, and the natives participated in that particular ritual, in a way introducing Christianity to the natives. Although of course the natives did not understand anything about it, but the colorful rituals had impinged into their mind. They remembered the rituals, not so much the meaning of the rituals, but then there was a ritual that is strange for them, and therefore reminded them of a different religion. And in a way, that stuck up into their mind even when the Legazpi expedition arrived 44 years after.
It's true that the Magellan-Elcano Expedition introduced Christianity to the Philippines and was one of the best gifts we received from the expedition.
So imagine if Magellan did not come. It is said among some historians, and even the Spaniards during the time of the Legazpi expedition, they said that had the Spaniards arrived, had the Legazpi expedition arrived 20 years after, the entire Philippines would have been under Muslim rule. So that's one thing. We were spared. We were given this gift of faith, of Catholicism, because Magellan came to us. Or else we would be like Indonesia. Either we are Buddhist, we are Hindus, or we would be Muslim. But we are Catholics, and that's one of them. The other thing that you have to understand, because of this Catholic faith, we generated not necessarily a Spanish culture, but a Spanish culture is only one aspect of the Catholic faith, because essentially the Filipino culture is a culture of Catholicism. What I mean is we are not only Catholic in terms of religion, we are Catholics in terms of culture. The way we constructed our houses, the way we constructed our images, the way we build our images, we carve images, the way we get educated. Our education is true and true Catholic. So essentially, the Filipino culture is essentially a Catholic culture. And that, I think, is one of the greatest legacies of Magellan. Not only the faith, but the culture itself, which is a panoramic aspects of the Catholic religion and the Catholic culture.
Our location for our shoot now is at San Guillermo Parish in Bacolor, Pampanga. It is one of the heritage churches of the province, and also one of the chosen Jubilee churches for the 500th-year anniversary of Christianity in the Philippines. San Guillermo Church in Bacolor is called the Sunken Church because half of it was buried in lahar, caused by the 1991 Mount Pinatubo eruption. Time flies so fast, but every minute is a story. Thank you for watching this episode. I'm your Kulit traveler, Mark Pangilinan. Our national hero Jose Rizal once said, "He who does not know how to look back at where he came from will never get to his destination." See you again next week, and this is Historia, story within history. Here at Historia, we don't have a monopoly in knowledge, talent, and information. If you would like to be one of our Council of Consultants, we would be more than willing to discuss it with you. Just email us at mark@limangsiglo.org or message us on Limang Siglo Facebook page.